Femdol kake mo faseda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online, recorded live on Saturdays, 1500 UTC. I am Matt Earl, your host from the Destructive Influence Corporation, NC DOT, and also INN. Today we have a show about the action that's heating up in the southern region of the map, and that is catch between what is the Legacy Coalition and NCPL. And of course, Pravi Block is in the area and a few others. So we have a great show, a lot of guests, including Vili, who just wrote an article for INN. Actually, it was a submission. Great battle report. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of like the old days of battle reports. And let's actually introduce everybody. So we'll just go from top to bottom here alphabetically and start with from Goonswarm, Apple Pear.
Hello, I'm Apple Pear, member of Goonswarm Federation, Corp Hakyuku, and ISFC sometimes.
Good morning. I'm Carnero, CEO of The Bastion.
Hey, what's up? It's Dirk McGurk, member of Sniggardly and Pandemic Legion and co-host of the Open Com Show.
Hello, I'm Azalis, and I'm in GSF, and I've been writing guides for INN.
Hi, I'm Yintan. I'm a member of CVA, our CVA's head FC, and a member of the CSM.
And Vili is here with us from Test Alliance, formerly of CFC and Goonswarm. And was it Goonswarm? I guess it was.
Hi, I'm Vili, formerly of Eternity Inc. Corporation, formerly of Mercenary Coalition, formerly of, some now forgotten candid role players of many years ago.
What was your NPC?
Bloody splinter factions.
Yeah.
But now from Test.
Now currently Mighty Fleet Commander of the glorious Test Alliance. Please ignore.
Welcome very much. Let's talk about what you wrote up a few days ago, and that was the battle at Head GP. Pretty big. But before we get to that, can you tell us something about the history, or anybody, of Head GP? Because it's definitely one of those systems that gets mentioned a lot over the history of EVE.
Okay, well, Head GP is probably the most crucial point in the southern sphere of EVE, basically. It is the high sec to null sec gate between the central south and Empire. It goes from Kebers to Head GP, and it is also has a variety of really interesting features. It is a 7-moon system. It has good bridge range, especially good range in the older system. And while it has no moons of relevance, the fact that it's a 7-moon system with a it's got a super jump link. I don't know how you guys really describe them, but it's one where the gate to jump is like well over 10 light years, so it's not replicable with capitals. It's only a subcapital kind of jump. It's got a ton of tactical implications, and it's kind of the gateway to the south. If you want to go over historical battles of Head GP, I remember when I came into the game in 2005. We were fighting over Head GP with Huzzah, and I think it was Stain Empire at the time. But Head GP has seen a myriad of cap battles and just strategic battles, SOV battles, etc. AAA to you name it. Right before BR Attack, there was the massive cap battle in Head GP that was kind of the precursor to BR Attack, and now we're trying to control it to maintain our flow of material and assets in the south.
Yeah. Did you want to add to that, Yintan?
I was just going to note that one of the main tactical reasons, as opposed to just strategic reasons, why a fight occurred there was due to the fact that NC DOT was using it as a basis for their bridging into other fights in the south. They were able to go from Gehi, which is their current staging, through Kebers to Head GP, where they had a POS and a Titan, and were able to bridge from there onto anywhere they felt they needed to be in the south in order to third party along with PL.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. But first, the head GP is, as Billy was saying, it's a historic, system that people have fought over for a long time, and for various reasons, which he just ticked off like 5 reasons more than the usual. It also, was it one of the original stations too, or was that, did it not have a station? Okay.
It was one of the very first. I think it was one of the earlier outposts, but not one of like the early ones. But in the old system of tower control, SOV, it's a 7-moon system, which is extremely relevant, meaning it doesn't cost 40 large towers worth of fuel to secure your SOV. So it was highly relevant in that mechanic.
In other words, you could take it over relatively easy.
Well, quite the opposite, actually. You could defensively protect it quite easily. You moonlock head GP with all 7 large towers. The enemy has to come in, kill your towers one by one to take the SOV over, versus they just start spamming large towers in your space, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it also, back in the days of static complexes, it also had a static, one of the few in the game of a static 10 out of 10. So you could farm it for a lot of money. And in fact, I know at one point AAA had a ruling where only leadership could use that static 10 out of 10, which led to some fun times.
So it was royal.
There was another one, I believe, but I'm pretty sure Head GP was the one with the static 10-10.
I just like that idea of AAA leadership carving out a little, royal hunting ground for themselves.
That's horrible. I completely disagree with that approach.
To be fair, it's not like they weren't doing that as of 8 months ago in like Stain and Esoteria, etc. So it's saying that
that tradition continues.
Well, they were farming the J6QB, or the system right next to the entrance to Stain, where it's got a static plex. That was the AAA farm zone right up until we conquered them this January.
Oh, interesting. Well, let's actually go back a little bit again before this battle that we're going to talk about. What's the setup here? Like, you guys have come into this area coming down from the north. Can you take us back and just kind of set up the situation that we're in now?
Okie dokie. So reverse time mode. We're escaping Vale from the persecution of the mighty Pandemic Legion and Northern Coalition forces. They hadn't really made any moves to start invading us yet, but we had, how do I put this? Pandemic Legion moved in next door, which basically means that living next door is not really an option. So we had bailed down south to begin an invasion of the south. Pretty promptly, actually. We took 2 weeks to move to Curse, and we pushed through Catch, and there was most of the quote-unquote winter war was fought over 10 to 15 days there, at which point Goonswarm kind of let up on their support of Stainwagon a little bit, and Stainwagon, which wasn't much to begin with, basically started crumbling. All of their smaller alliances, didn't do well. We pushed through Impasse, Esoteria, Paragon Soul in pretty short order, although we're quite literally still cleaning up random citadels and moons and shit that we've missed, just because they've been in this area for 5 to 6 years and nobody's truly purged them. And then we proceeded to continue doing that. About a month ago, we were in 9RQ, which is in the middle of Stain, basically further kind of applying the boot to the neck of Stainwagon, trying to force them out. And just as of about a week ago, we've pushed back up to Catch from Esoteria to just provide a little more control and coverage of the region after a couple incidents with PL and NC kind of making us go, okay, we need to be a little more active and proactive in this area to keep things under control, kind of thing.
Yeah. So you guys, I know that I'm from NC, and I know we've been making raids into that area. As Jiantan was saying, we used that as our jump point because essentially it's it's the first system that takes you into that region. And so from that single point, you can jump into the region at different places and make different raids on the area. Even though our headquarters is a few jumps away, that one system is critical because we can't jump in from our staging system.
And you
So-
can't put Titans in high sec.
Well, yeah, among other things. You can put them in low sec, but still you couldn't make the light year jump from back there. So people understand it was a very strategic point. So that tower, do you want to explain what happened during this fight, this huge fight that happened? First, let's say that big fight that happened just the other day, it was on the 1st, cost over 500 billion in damages to both sides, with most of that being NCPL, I think over 300 billion. And
Yeah, it's
involved-
looking like about 310 to 180 right now, roughly.
Mhm.
Most of that kind of swing is when you kind of push when one side has to clear off the field, or one side has to kind of give ground, I guess you could say, in large fights like that. Yeah, it's usually when you start to really win those ISK numbers, because that's where it comes from.
Mhm. You mean the retreat? They end up losing a lot of ships.
Not just that, but they also end up being able to just kill off all the pods. Like if you didn't notice, there were a lot of mid-grade slaves and things like that. So picking up those kills right at the end of the fight is something people who are losing will not be able to do.
Well, a good example is, when you're in those kind of fights and you realize you've lost, you stop reinforcing, right? You say, okay, the fight's over, we're going to lose. You stop bringing in more assets. And so those last 15, 20, 30 capitals, they very quickly go below critical mass where they can kill enemy capitals. And so, they're effectively dying without the ability to fight back in a way. Certainly they're going to do their best to shoot and
I
try and
see.
take
So
down a couple guys, but for the most part,
They-
those guys have no real way to, counteract their own losses. Unlike, earlier in the fight where we were effectively pretty well trading 1-for-1.
Right. I see what you mean. So they stop generating kills on their side. And the extraction, I think, is very dangerous because, at least for bigger assets, they're usually trapped with warp disruption bubbles, and they're just there for the picking. I think.
Well, that's why in large super cap battles, especially, or any type of large capital battles, it's there's effectively almost no way to extract once you begin. It's part of the problem of EVE is that almost every capital battle is a fight to the death in many regards, because if you create a situation where I drop dreads and you drop dreads, well, 9 times out of 10 dreads aren't going anywhere anyways. But when you have super capital assets, etc., there's just so many bubbles, and time dilation creates kind of this sludge where I can die in a dictor, get potted, get back into system before my old dictor bubble is even halfway dead expired, right? So it just becomes almost impossible to untackle capitals once they're down. So
which is why,
once you commit, you've committed.
Right, and that's why I thought the battle where NC jumped on CO2 with their 10 Titans out, and they were able to get like half of those out. I thought that was a big deal. This was right after the
SH1
command
fight.
destroyers.
Well, what happened in that fight was about an hour before that, they got those Titans out. Myself and I'm not sure who was the CO2 FC at the time, probably Gigex. But we basically just switched to an all dictor overview and shot nothing but dictors for almost an hour. And you can they're pulling dictors out of Titans, they're pulling dictors in from new systems, and so on and so forth. And we managed to get all the super carriers out because of the way dictor bubble coverage works in large fights like that, where it becomes a percentile situation, not so much a targeted situation. Because Titan, when an enemy drops a dictor bubble, if any part of that dictor bubble touches the Titan can't warp, right? That's basically how the mechanic works. But because Titans are so large, it becomes a percentile coverage thing, where if I drop a dictor bubble and it touches 3 Titans, then those 3 Titans can't warp, but everything else can warp. But since the super carrier models are so much smaller, that it ensures that the super carriers have a really good shot at getting out, because it's a lot easier for them to do that. And by the end, the only reason we lost the 3 or 4 remaining Titans at the very end was because they were all war scrambled by like 100 Proteuses each, so there was no way to clear the bubbles off them. But that was at least an hour or two of just pure anti-Dictor coverage in like 10% tie-dye, mind you, which is...
Yeah, that to me was the real story that got passed up with, it's a big victory in S1 or whatever, SV1. And I thought, I think the bigger story is these new, how you actually got, supers out of a situation like that. And I think it was the beginning of the new tactical destroyer or the command destroyer that could...
we were bombing bubbles and boosting bubbles and doing everything we could to get him out of there.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was an interesting part of this fight for me because it's actually my first time attempting to be a bomber FC. I was pretty shit at it.
Okay, now we're talking about head GP, right?
Yeah, and I nearly accidentally bombed off a ton of bubbles. Just managed to stop it at the last moment.
Oh, you would have freed us.
Yeah.
All right.
At the very end, or was this at the very end of the fight, Jintan?
Yeah. During the end of the fight, people were lining up for a bomb run. And I was like, no bombers! Please do not bomb this! Please do not bomb this! Christ.
All right, let's go back to head GP now. We were talking about SV1 and how once you put in a super fleet, it's hard to get it out, and that was kind of an exception. But now let's go back to head GP and what happened during this battle. How did it start and what was it over and all that?
Well, that was a reinforced head GP POS that NC Dot owned that they'd been using as their primary staging point for Titan bridges. So the day before that, there'd been some PL Sov that we had formed up to kill, and NC Dot and PL didn't form, so we went out and reinforced PLR 64 in that moon. So this was the timer for that, and we all showed up. They all showed up. So there was, 250 man worth of Macario fleet split into, I think, probably. I don't know for sure, but I assume they were split into with, 8 or 9 apostles out and waiting. And, we knew those were there. And we also knew, that there was a significant number of caps that had been moved into position as well, since we'd watched them slow boat away from Jamunda. I hadn't, for some reason, I'd not thought of waffles at the time, but once we saw them in Jamunda, we're like, oh yeah, waffles too. So they sat there and waited. We got into system. We had some issues with Sinos, but everything went fine. Got ourselves on grid at range. Got ourselves nice and loaded. CO2 test, FCON. Brave, everybody got themselves sorted, and then we just kind of worked down and went at 0. We dropped caps immediately just to prevent any hesitation or issues, and if NC Dot or PL wasn't ready with their dreadnoughts, it'd give us an even larger window to do damage with that force. We took the fight and kind of just went into it kind of head on. Unfortunately, you lose a lot of the ability to strategically affect the battle space in those kind of fights when it's effectively 2 guys standing in the center of a ring and just throwing heavy punches at each other.
Yeah, and you can read this in really good descriptive form on Imperium News. There's an article by Vili that's, like I said, reads like the old-timey battle reports that we used to love. That's just really fast, great pacing, great story. So you can check it out there. Now, I didn't know this, but was the NC Pause is it still there, or was it destroyed?
Well, in sort of our how do I put this? Blood drunk victory, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Logistics concerns stopped being as heavy as they should, and we failed to anchor a new POS on the moon after we killed it. So NC Dot ninja'd one down a couple hours later, and we were all just.
But isn't that what everybody wants, though? I mean, because now it's another reason to hey, let's do it again.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Like you have those kind of fights, and you're like, it's the kind of fights people play Eve to do. It's the kind of fights where this is why I want to play Eve. This is why PL and NC Dot members want to play Eve. Like everybody had, for the most part, a pretty good time. Like it wasn't one of those fights where it was totally one-sided and one side is super butthurt and everybody's like, this fucking shit. It was a good fight. The tie-dye was manageable. It wasn't 10% for 10 hours. It was a good fight. So yeah, everybody was kind of happy with that, the way those kind of fights go. And that, let's be clear. I would prefer if we would have put up a new tower and secured the tactical objective as we had intended. But after like 3 or 4 hours in battle, you're exhausted. You're like, I'm not gonna, and then somebody drops the ball somewhere and it doesn't get done, and they're like, whatever, we had a good time.
Yeah, it just likens to like two guys fighting over something, and then in that bloodlust, they forget to take the thing they were fighting for. But it's interesting. I saw a lot of comments from people saying, "Wow, I just joined Test, or I just joined Brave, and this is amazing. This is what I read about," and that kind of stuff. So went over well with new recruits.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I know in Test even, once we got pushing towards the capital and super capital elements of the fight, we lost a lot of focus on our sub capital elements, and that was unfortunate, but just part of the process of learning to deal with these large fights again. As after a while, you I don't want to say you get rusty, but there's 100 little elements to these fights that are often neglected in some way or another. And I know I certainly and Test certainly made some mistakes in terms of how we managed certain components of our membership and fleet during that battle.
I think you might have lost a bit more subcaps than you needed to, but yeah, you won the cap fight, and that was most important. So,
Apple Pear, were you there too?
I was not there on grid. We had our friends from SV Kendor was there with a Nightmare fleet to put pressure on NC and PL, their Logi, to make it a bit harder for them to shoot things. And we had a timer ourselves pretty close after that to kill Citadel in Gehi. But when Test decided to drop supers, we formed a T3 fleet, tackle fit, to go there and try to hold things down. We couldn't get there fast enough because NC and PL were extracting too fast for us to get there in time. But we got a consolation prize. We jumped on Test and killed some Macarials, etc. when they gated into Gehi, so we got some kills out of that, and then got our objective by killing the NC Citadel that was there. So we did pretty okay.
Yeah. What's interesting is you had the Phoenix coalition, right, which I believe is FCON and Triumvirate, but they kind of split up for this one, it looks like.
So what you have in the southeast is actually two different coalitions. You have the Phoenix Federation, which is the FCON-led coalition, and then you have the Vanguard coalition, which is, I guess, a higher level coalition, which is both Tri and I assume FCON to a degree are members of. I could be wrong, and FCON might not be part of a Vanguard, but they've always been extremely friendly to each other. Unfortunately, most of the time, Tri, takes the side where they think they're going to be able to, get the most kills and do the best for themselves, kind of that. And they chose a fight where, they showed up in Tengus, and nobody has time to deal with some random fucking Tengus in the middle of a brawl that size. So, they show up, they're third party, and they just get to kind of free fire and whatever they want. And I mean, it worked for them,
Yeah, but Pravi came in on a certain side, Jintan, or?
Yeah, Pravi came in support of Legacy. They've been helping us out recently, and most of the time zones work great for us. We committed everything we had at the time.
And almost too much, right? Because you almost cleared out their tackle.
Yeah, well, by the time people realized that it was going to be a really big fight, people just started bringing as much as they could so they could whore on as much as they could. Because that's the mentality of a lot of players. They want to just get on those kills, so people want to just bomb their capitals so I can get on all of those capital kill amounts. Because oh god, the ISK. I had to tell them to not do that and convince them not to. But yeah, we dropped some dreads too, like 10. It's not much, but hey, we
Oh,
do
that's
actually
something.
have caps, you know? Surprise to some people, including myself.
Oh
Well,
my God, we have caps.
yeah. The
When
big
did this
takeaway.
happen?
The big takeaway was I mean, if you look at it from further away, this is NC and PL kind of getting out escalated. When CO2 supers came in, there was no real answer to that, and that was an interesting contrast.
Test supers, you mean? I hope.
I'm sorry, I thought they were CO2 supers.
No, they were tests.
Oh, sorry, test supers.
Supers, yeah.
And test supers, that's exactly what they moved to the south to do, is to build these super capital ships that they could kind of deploy in this way.
Yeah, well, I mean, NC and PL have left their big toys at home. They're not here in overwhelming force because if they bring their super capital assets down, it becomes overwhelming force whether they intended to be or not, and it kind of dries up all the fights rather quickly, right? This wouldn't have even happened if NC and PL had super capital assets in the region.
Well, the initial fight might have. Whether or not you chose to drop heavy stuff, probably wouldn't.
No, I'm not gonna fight Macarials with fucking triage without any way to counter escalate at all.
Well, okay, yeah. I guess what I mean is like you could still have subcap fights, but yeah, the threat of a PL super escalation.
Well, no, you don't even get subcap fights because I've tried this many times with PL. Like, unfortunately, PL's kind of PL generally fights outnumbered, right? Because there are smaller lines with heavier assets. So, and I generally fight with numbers on my side because I've got a significant pilot disadvantage and, I don't want to say skill point disadvantage, but composition disadvantage, etc. So PL's general go-to answer is, in a lot of cases, capital escalation, right? If they have a 150 man Macarial fleet, that's going to be backed in usuality by Hod Dreads and triage. And let's say if I bring a 200 man Maelstrom fleet, if I don't have a way to deal with those Hod Dreads and Apostles, then I'm going to get absolutely decimated, right? That's Hod Dreads just tear Macarials apart or Maelstroms apart, and Apostles, if there's any level of tie, they make it extremely hard to kill Macarials. So if I don't have a plan to kill those capitals, then I'm de facto losing the fight. And if I do have a plan to kill the Apostles, well, PL is going to be like, well, we don't want to just let you win this fight. So the escalation chain spawns up and up and up out of control almost naturally, right? It's not something where people are like, yeah, I feel like I want to lose this fight. I'm not going to escalate. People make that, especially when PL and NC have the cards so freely available, right? If you have 50 facts and you have 100 supers and nobody can match you, the escalation tree is entirely open to you for free. So why would you not take that chart, right? And as such,
and the members want that too. Like, they're waiting to use those things. So you have to kind of satisfy them.
So it's much like what you saw in Vale, like where Tess just left, right? There's no point in trying to fight because I remember we had a fight against, I think it was Pandemic Legion in 900. It was a jumper system. We had it Sino jammed early, but they'd cleared the jammer, etc. Anyways, and we caught PL moderately out of position, with supers. We had a good Titan bump. We could make we could in theory have done something, but we're watching staging systems and NC Dot's already got 20 or 30 more supers ready to go and another 20 or 30 facts, and it's like there's just no path here where even when our enemy makes mistakes or gets some bad luck with bumps, etc., where we have any options. So that's a component of why you just can't take those fights, unfortunately.
All right.
Well, yeah. Well, but the problem on the PLNC side is that if they're not going to drop those things, right, then they are also kind of limited just based on numbers. I mean,
yes, absolutely.
They're not huge organizations.
No, absolutely. It's just kind of the unfortunate way it kind of spins, right? One group, like the great desire or the great hope would be that if PL and NC Dot were like 30 to 40% weaker in super capital strength, and then the field would be a little equal, or like there would be an opportunity for the field to be a little more equal, maybe. But as it is, like when you combine those two, unless you've got like Imperium plus everyone else, there's almost no fucking there's no hope. I guess you could say there's no equals, I guess.
Apple, did you want to get in this?
Yeah, you saw the same what happened with Inet in Syndicate. We came there once down with a shitload of carriers and pretty much won a fight there. And then NC took down supers. Yeah, there's no way there are enough supers from us in range to deal with that. So yeah, then you're not going to take fights, and then it's done. And that's pretty much how that goes. And I think NCPL have now at this moment feeling the other end of the stick, and that's fun to see and to play with.
All right. So it was a good fight. It looked like a lot of people had a lot of fun. Test was celebrating so much they forgot to actually secure the goal, but that's okay because it may generate yet another fight in Head GP, a historic site where a lot of battles have taken place over the years. So that's cool. Anybody else got anything on this or the war in the South? Do we know like how it's shaping up yet? Do we know which sides are which, or is it still kind of
It's
an
not
amorphous?
really a war so much as just an incursion, I guess would probably be the best way to describe it, I guess.
Yeah.
PL and NC aren't taking this shit serious. They're down, they're here for fun, they're just
They're keeping themselves entertained before the AT season.
They're looking for shit to do, and they're finding shit to do because that's what they do.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to see stuff heat up maybe in the autumn or 30, 40 days before the patch in December or whenever the changes are coming out for stations.
Yeah. The station sprint or whatever it is, your gold rush as you call it.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
As it currently stands, my understanding is that the current old stations are going to be converted to Fortizars with just a special rig, right?
Well, no, they're going to be faction Fortizars. They're going to be completely unique and have unique bonuses and stats and all that.
Yeah, but the bonuses they get are less than what you have if you have a specific EC for it or fit for it with normal rig. So it has a lot of different bonuses, but less value. So I don't see them getting used that much.
As Fozzie has said, though, they're going to be they're going to be significantly harder to kill than non-faction Fortizars. So you're going to be looking at them being defensive installations. I think people are consistently being sidetracked by these whole production and research bonuses that don't really mean anything. They're just.
Do we have hard stats on that yet, or is this just? Okay, so this is like
specifically.
This is stuff you've seen on CSM, but I can't really tell us about. But you kind of know, kind of.
No. He specifically said this in the presentation. He said they're going to be stronger and better.
So Fozzie said something, but there's no hard stats behind it.
There's no hard stats for it.
So there's.
I'm not just going to lie. Did you just say? Are you implying that I was going to live leak from the CSM?
No, I was more so implying that if just because Fozzie says something doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen. I was promised fucking shield slaves. What, 14 months ago now? 15 months ago?
We welcome leaks.
Fucking sitting here. Jesus Christ.
Can you tell us how much Zidrine you've bought?
Yeah. All of it. I bought all of the Zidrine because, as you all know, I just love the green.
Yeah. We here at TIS appreciate leaks. We try to get them out of people all the time. All right, so that's interesting because it sounds like there's maybe not as much enthusiasm for what we presume is going to be a huge fight later on this fall or early next year over capturing stations before they transition. After the transition, they become extremely valuable, it's assumed.
Loose the Fozzie claws of death.
But it sounds like maybe some of these FCs are looking at it saying, well, maybe it's not worth it. Definitely not worth mobilizing all our guys.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it until the day that it is, and then we're all going to go and get those collector's items.
Well, until those stats come out.
As much as I have full respect for Peel's ability to do things every once in a while, I don't think you guys have any appreciation for just how much fun grinding through FozzieSoft timers against 200 to 800 people opposing you can be. I don't think you have any appreciation for it just yet.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the best design system we've ever seen.
We shall see. All right. So this is thanks very much, Billy. That battle report on Imperium News is worth reading, and we're happy that he put it on Imperium News. So I want to actually bring that up because if you're an FC or somebody that is, somebody that people listen to, and you want to submit to Imperium News, or if you're not somebody as famous as Billy, we do pay submissions now. We used to just pay staff, but now we pay submissions, one per month. You can get 500 million for an article that is something that is worth reading. And so, but more than anything else, it's the exposure. If you're an FC and you want to get a battle report out there, that's great. We'll publish it. No problem. All right. The other thing that happened, and this happened just a few minutes ago, is the second Satio was killed. And these are these giant engineering complexes from non-player characters, the Blood Raiders. And so they have this place where they build their super capitals that come under attack. One of those was killed a few weeks ago, the very first one. And just a few minutes ago, the second one was killed. Apple Pear, you were there, right?
Yes, I was one of the Cs dealing with that, yeah.
Killed the same way as last time?
We killed it with pretty much the same way. We had some other types of ships now, also some with T2 guns, etc. So it had some extra DPS. It did go a bit faster, and we were chasing tests all around the grid and killing their bombers and interceptors. Just make it a bit worse time for them to try to take everything. But yeah.
Yeah. So it didn't sound like you're very happy about it.
No. This we pretty much spent 10 hours to finding this stupid thing, and then spent 3 hours to reinforce it, another 2 hours to kill it, and nothing dropped. So yeah, who's going to run those things with all those irritating interceptors trying to loot your stuff anyway, and then you don't get, even after so many hours doing the work for it, get anything back for it. So yeah. I'm pretty much like, fuck that thing, and I'm not going to run it anymore.
This sounds very similar to your interview on the 07 show the other day. Actually, it sounds completely the reverse of that.
It was, if it dropped, I would have been okay with it if it just dropped like a threat or a fax. If it dropped anything, but if it doesn't drop anything of value, then yeah. And I still had some reversement with the red cycling, that you had to deal with that, and the fact that the loot mechanic is not ideal. But I had to hope they would do something about that soon. But yeah, this is just such a slap in the face for you spend so much time with all of your players and you don't get even anything back for it.
That's not even covering the fact that you have to do it with fucking frigates.
Yeah. That's pretty much because if you bring Macarials, at least the last time we did that, those damn things cannot keep up because they're red cycling, so you lose the damage application to the damn thing. And you lose a shitload of Macarials because of the reds they are there who are killing you, and you cannot save them all. So the way to do it pretty much is interceptors, or do it like the Russians, balls deep with a few... what they used, a few supers around it.
They use 4 supers, yeah.
That are the 2 ways they do it. No, yeah, and then this I'm maybe things calm down a bit, but at the moment I'm pretty pissed and not looking forward to doing those things again.
Why are there no bounties?
Because people would farm the bounties.
Yeah, you'd just be able to hilariously exploit it. For example, with your with bombers, if you just sit there and bomb them for a while.
I understand they don't do bounties at the ships that you kill, but at least give the Satio, if you kill the Satio, like you kill the mom in an incursion thing, a bounty that everybody gets like 25 million or something like that, who is there, that it at least is worth something for them to do it, and then you can get a bonus towards it. But at the moment, if nothing drops or people or the loot mechanics are abused because you can just sit there with an interceptor, warp in, and try to take it away from you. Yeah, that's not worth it.
So you really get nothing, right? I mean, that's just the expectation that you might.
Yeah.
So now you have to, well, you figured out how to defeat it, but defeat it with a lot of people, because you need a lot of people to do this. All those people get nothing, and you have the possibility of your own alliance not getting anything if somebody steals it out from under you, which people are poised to do, which is why the Russians didn't finish it off, because they didn't want somebody else to go in there and steal it. And they couldn't with just a few super capital ships defeating the Satoyo. They couldn't possibly loot in those ships.
We had 350 people on the Satoyo at 0 at the moment it got killed, and Test was still warping in, and others were still warping in. So the chance of us not getting it was not that big at this moment, because we were pretty okay at killing all those interceptors and everybody around to keep them at the nose, not being able to sit there. But yeah. So and we had a video of it, etc., and nobody saw any loot of it. So we're pretty much sure nothing dropped. You cannot be 100%, but for 99.99%, I'm sure nothing dropped. So yeah.
So we may see, like, in a few days, after somebody gets to safety with that vital blueprint, that, hey, I did steal it from under your noses.
I think somebody would have smucked it up already, because yeah, that's, especially if it was somebody from Test or NCPL, they would have smucked it up just to get it in the face.
Yeah, nobody from Test got it that I'm aware of, and like just because of the loot logging mechanics, anybody in fleet that gets it, you're going to be able to see pretty quick, right?
Yeah,
and nobody thinks they're going to be the person to get it and drop fleet that second, right? You don't have that time window to do it, so.
No. So you two guys that would run these kind of things, because your fleet commanders are 3, or okay, Dirk, I'll throw you in there. You guys, what would happen if somebody did get that blueprint? Who's that go to, and how's that get distributed among everyone else?
At the moment, what I know with us in the Imperium is we don't have enough data for it yet to make a specific plan for it. So at the moment, what the plan is it goes to finance, and that pays it out to all the coalition members, a part of that, and use it for SRP or other things, etc. And there are plans, if we would run it a lot, and it would be worth running it a lot, that we would find a system that people could either be able to buy the thing easier or get a payout for it. But for the rest, we have to see how it goes. At the moment, I don't think it's worth running them. So yeah.
Well,
we have a lot of
as
trust.
someone who I sorted the sale of the first Revenant PPC off the first incursion.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Built the first Revenant too. First person to ever sit in a Revenant. That's me.
Wow.
I sold it though. But so yeah, we got the first BPO or BPC off of an incursion. But what we did with that is we just I took the BPC, I put it on the forums, and we sold it, and then I split it 80 ways, I think, which was 512 mil a person at the time.
Very what's the word? I don't know. You have high morals. Yeah. You were saying, Carneros, that you guys
in the Imperium, we have enough confidence and trust in upper leadership and our relationships with each other that we can just give the BPCs to the finance group for a while, let them collect some up and come up with a plan, and it'll be a good plan.
Right, but does it become something where basically all the people that are in that fleet are doing it for the good of the alliance, the good of the coalition? Therefore, the ISK is going to the ISK is for the alliance, or is there somehow some trickle down thing at some point? And then how would you do that when you're talking a couple hundred people that are involved over the course of a few days?
Yeah,
I think you underestimate how good our record keeping is in the background. We have participation stats for every scanning fleet to find the thing, for each reinforcement fleet, for each of the fleets that came on grid for during the fight, for the ones that were blocking interceptors, for all of them. The only place we're weak is out of alliance scouting alts that might be placed in various places helping. They're contributing too, but we don't track them as well. But literally everyone else, we can tell what they did. And if we could,
well, I think Aerith answered. I think he said 50-50. So it looks like in the case of this, if the thing were to actually drop something, that eventually there would be a 50-50 kind of split thing.
But this
But
is
the thing
like
the thing is, Eret is the guy who thinks of those things and has a good idea. So, yeah, we will find a plan for it and to trickle it down at least some. And finance was already looking into how to do it. So, but we first have to make it worth running them.
Yeah, and you guys are also looking at how to stop people from grabbing it after you guys defeat it, right? I remember that that's what Aerith said when he was on the show a few weeks ago. Yeah. Anyway, that seems like it's workable by groups like yours that are built. They're large groups that can do this, and you guys have kind of been around the block a few times. But what about the smaller groups or the groups that have a lot more pointy leadership at the top, like I don't know, any medium-size alliance? Like I wonder how they're going to divide up that effort, because if it's only going to be goons or tests that can do this, that's not going to work.
Well, to be fair, these I don't know what you would call them, pirate incursions or whatever, are only really going to happen in 6 locations possible.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got, the Venal Guristas one, which will get farmed by some NCPL subordinate or through that kind of chain. You've got Syndicate, which will probably be easily farmable by Init or Horde or someone. The one in Curse, I'm sure, will be, for Angels would be an interesting dynamic. But you've got Tri there, you've got PL there right now, but I'm sure alliances from Catch would push over. The reward is very far above the organizational challenge of pulling it off. So I don't see that the ability to run the sites as being the limiting factor so much as it is the issues with loot mechanics and drawing in hostile forces when you try to farm the site successfully would be the biggest issues.
Well, it's not the taking it on or defeating it that's the problem anymore. It's not a problem, but the challenge. It's more the all or nothing. It's a single point of payment or nothing.
Yeah, but with those situations, like let's say if Horde does it, Horde is going to pass it up to their leadership, and they will make a decision. Pandemic Legion, NC Dot, even as a game built on trust, you join an alliance, you're joining that alliance with you're handing your trust over, and I have absolutely zero doubt that there are people within Horde and PL and Test and Goons and all those people where if they were the one that got the 150 billion blueprint, they'd be dropping alliance and they'd be at the door the next day. I have no doubt there are those people in every alliance, but the vast majority of people want to be part of the collective, want to be part of the hive or the group, and they're not going to sacrifice their group identity just for a quick cash out. And so what you have is most of those groups will have no problem, getting the blueprint passed up, and then hopefully passing it down to their membership.
Well, and you're the guy with the experience because you got the first Revenant and rode in it. You rode in the little caddy for a while, the Cadillac, and then you sold it off and split up the gains.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfortunate too because I think we ran 7 low sec incursions before we got the BPC, or maybe we got it on the first one and then we did get another one for this next 7. I can't remember how it was, but I think we did the first 9 low sec incursions. We only got 1 BPC, and at the time I could not find a buyer for that shit. Like I just could not find a buyer, and I sold it for like 40 bill after like 2 different forum threads up for like weeks on end, and then like 2 months later, apparently people, they changed the jump, they buffed it or something. I can't remember what they did, but all of a sudden everybody wanted it. The shit was worth 200 bill like 2 months later, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I think they augment its I believe it's jump range by 1 system or something, by 1 light year.
Something like that.
Yeah, they did something that made it a little different than a normal super cap.
I'm remembering something about them reducing all the rest of the super caps jump range and forgetting to do that one, so it maintained a slight edge for a while.
Yeah, and funny thing is, I throw in a full fighter bay worth of shadows at the time too, and I'm like, fuck, think of all the dumb shit I did back then.
All right. So another thing that's going on in INN land is that we've created this mining guide. And we're going to talk about the mining changes that just came up to the Rorqual, because this a lot of people are kind of talking about those changes and how it's slowing down the acquisition of minerals. But first, I want to introduce Izzy, which is Azaleas. Is it? What's your actual name?
Izalis.
Izalis, yeah. And you were one of the principal writers of the Eve Mining Guide for INN. Can you tell us about that guide and the process of making it?
Yes, the guide is our attempt to have a comprehensive guide to help not only new players but experienced players, and address not only the mechanics of mining but the theory behind why you do what you do. There are sections on Rorquals, there are sections on just the basic mining ships. We have information on how to survive in high sec, how to survive in null, and we intend for this to be not just a static guide, but something we change and we update. And so in the next week, we'll be going over the feedback that we've got from the mining guide that we published last week and improving what we have. But with the changes upcoming, we will also be going through, and it's been suggested that we make a page when the changes come out, talking about how to optimize the use of anomalies with the respawn timers and things like that.
Is there a section in that about how to properly blame Fozzie?
I think that blaming Fozzie is a skill that Eve players gain organically.
Yeah, it takes years to hone those skills.
You got to train that skill.
Indeed.
Fozzie!
Ow, my fucking ears.
Yeah, Seamus, don't do that again. Everybody's got high volume on. All right. Oh, and by the way, Seamus did sneak in. Seamus Donahue from Eve University. That is who snuck in there in the middle of the show. Thank you very much for coming, Seamus, again.
Hello. Sorry about the eardrums.
It's all right. A quick introduction for you that I can edit and put at the beginning. Go ahead, identify yourself.
Oh, sorry. Hello, I am Seamus Donahue of Eve University, Professor of Capsuleer Studies.
And professional earbreaker.
Really loud Seamus today.
Well, I guess since I did it on Talking in Stations, that's kind of sort of makes me professional, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's really good that anybody, INN at this point, has put out a mining guide. I think it's something that, especially if it's going to be updated, because obviously these things change over time. But it is nice because, again, you've got people out there who either come to mining late in their career or are new to the game and are getting involved. And there's I remember back with the who did the big one before the mining guide. Halada, yeah. Anyways, that was a great mining guide. But it didn't get updated very frequently. I think he only updated it like twice or something like that.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of these guides. This is a great contribution. Thank you.
We do have more guides planned. I'm currently working on a guide on production, called it the industry guide, but
Nice.
I've started calling it production. And I've been told that the mining guide topped out at around 18,000 words. The production guide is currently around 15,000 and has about 3.5 sections complete out of many. So it's going to be interestingly large.
You writing a guide or a novel?
A guide-shaped novel, maybe?
Well, guides are incredibly detailed, right? Because you want to cover all the different uses from beginning to advanced, but also the article is very popular, it turns out. So that's something that actually Izzy probably doesn't know yet, and that is that it's wildly popular. A lot of people are visiting it, and so this is a confirmation this is a good idea to do.
Well, Eve is insanely complicated, right? And even, when you're used to mechanics from day one, they're constantly changing. And so, especially with the incredible influx of players we've had over the last 5 to 10 years who are coming through the system, you're constantly relying on guides. And like I had to go look up a scanning guide just to do a random frigging site the other day. And with something as complicated as mining, and the type of people that are attracted to Eve are constantly the kind of people that want to min-max. They don't want to explore and waste 2 months of their training time or something like that. So when you've got good, concise, clear, well-written guides, you're generally going to have a really high amount of people who are going to be interested and take a look at that material, I would think.
Yeah, Eve University, we're always updating our wiki with something or other at any given point in time.
Indeed.
Eve University is what I looked at when we were planning, like this kind of section of INN. Eve University was definitely the model. They have beautiful guides, beautiful wiki. They keep it up to date mostly. They even have, some animation on it to kind of show how the relationship of a couple things work. All that stuff is really kind of set the bar that we're attempting to kind of also do. I think our guides are a little more geared towards talking specifically to Imperium members first, and then to the wider audience after that. But other than that, I think looking at Eve University guides is also a great it's a great resource.
They are excellent resources. I will admit to looking at them quite a few times during writing. I think one of the things that influences what we're doing is, while the guide needs to be useful for a variety of different people, there are lots of places you can go and find out how to do the mechanics of something. But there aren't as many places that you go to find out why you do the mechanics. During the production guide that I'm working on right now, I am writing about how you determine what you make, because what you make is how to make something is easy. You click a few buttons, you have the materials, it's done. You might wait some time, etc. But how do you choose what to make? What is going to make you profit? How do you determine what a profit is? What sort of profits should you look for? That sort of thing is a much more complex answer. And that is the goal for me personally, is to help people to understand not just the mechanics of industry, but how they work and how they intersect with how you play Eve.
Right.
Sweet.
Yeah, so look forward to more of that. Thanks, Izzy, for doing all that hard work, along with many other people as well.
And you'll have some updates to make soon.
We will.
Yes. So what's up with these updates? Dirk, you probably know about this, or anybody that wants to jump into this one.
There are
What's going on
several
with mining?
things going on with mining. CCP recently announced that they are doing two things, basically. They are nerfing Rorqual excavator drones, both the ore and the ice ones. And
Again.
they are adding, yes, again, for several times in a row, and they are adding respawn timers to anomalies, the ones you find in Sov Nullsec, and that are spawned via the iHub upgrades. These will have timers now. The large one, the Colossal, will have a 5-hour respawn timer. After it is cleared, it'll take 5 hours to respawn. Enormous will be 4, and it goes down from there. Colossal 5-hour, enormous 4 hours, large 2 hours, and 1 hour for the medium, 20 minutes for the small. But this is much like the ice timers, though if you have a Colossal belt in the system, you're going to have all the others. So it won't just be the one ice belt or 2 ice belts in the system respawning. This is going to have an interesting and large impact on miners. But it is
Is her mic cutting out, or is she
Yeah,
pausing?
I think
I
so.
can't tell sometimes.
I'm sorry, I'm pausing.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I mean, look, the two things that are going on here, right? Okay, so this is the third nerf to excavators that have happened since they were released, right? Basically, I think like every 3 months now. We had one in January, we had one in March, I believe it was, and now we've got this next one that appears to be imminent. I mean, they're asking for feedback, but from what I understand, this is happening regardless. I think the combination of these two things is overkill. I don't think that they actually need to, nerf again the excavators. However, I'm really wondering whether or not they even think at this point that a capital mining vessel was a smart idea. Very honestly, I don't think it ever was. Said that years ago and have continued to say that. And I think that they're actually getting to the point now where basically this is just going to be a capital mining support vessel that can also do some mining.
I think that was always I think theoretically that was the intent of the rock core, with the whole industrial core just being a quote-unquote bonus. I don't think CCP particularly foresaw fleets of rock cores. They didn't think that was going to be real.
They didn't think. Boom. I mean, because if they didn't foresee fleets of super powerful mining Rorquals out there, then they just didn't think.
No, they were built long before this new dynamic, so they were built for a whole different setup. But Carneros, did you want to say something?
Well, think about their high-level objectives on this at the moment. They're trying to keep the mineral market from unbalancing and losing value and falling apart. So that's a worthy goal. They are also trying to maintain a fun gameplay for people who prefer to go into mining as opposed to other types of EVE careers. We'll call it that. But if your goal is to reduce the amount of minerals coming into the system via nullsec Rorquals, you didn't also need to make the excavators themselves more vulnerable. That's an unrelated goal and a side effect here. If you look at the stats right now, excavators are not overpowered in any fashion in anything other than how much minerals they can bring in. They're not being exploited for PvP. They're not doing anything else wrong. If you look at the survival rate on encounter, what's killed, if you look at the deaths of excavators over the past month everywhere and how they died, you have no reason to nerf their movement ability or any of their defenses or anything. Zero. So they're not necessarily focusing their adjustments as well as I would do if I were working on them. And then and that's just the excavator nerf. If you look at the change in anomalies and the respawn rates, one of their high level goals over the past couple years has been, let's make population density higher in nullsec. Let's get rid of a lot of systems that are sitting around empty and have more of a feeling of activity and community, because people gathered together in one place in a system that can support more life are going to build more community bonds. And we all know it's the relationships between each other that really makes EVE sticky. It's not the mechanics of the game. It's the relationships and the stuff that we can do.
Agreed. And that is a balancing act. I mean, because that is a goal that they wanted to, to put in, and a lot of people wanted to, put it in terms of increasing, population density, how much a system can support in terms of players doing things in a single system, right? Or in fewer systems than they were spread over before. However, that does also reach a point where, in the case of instantly respawning mining anomalies, that it maybe gets out of hand.
Well, my guys are spreading out in response to what they're hearing. And the term spreading out, I believe, came out in the actual post, if I'm not remembering mistakenly. That's not an objective CCP designers should be going for. Spreading out is not an objective. Bringing in fewer minerals, bringing in minerals at a smaller rate, that's an objective.
I think the current changes have specifically gone against the intent to have people concentrated to have people living in their space. But the differences are going to be interesting because some people can't spread out, and some people have a limited number of systems and they have a bunch of miners piled in that system, and they are going to be affected more adversely than people like GSF who are able to spread out. We have many systems that we can go to, while small alliances that have one or two safe systems and they pile people in there are going to be very adversely affected. Runters who own one system, this is going to hurt them a lot more than it hurts people who have the ability to spread out and to defend their enlarged territory, that they do use it. They have the ADMs and the upgrades and such to say that we use this space. We kind of like being huddled together because, you know, this system has really great ore, it has a good position, such like that, but we do have the ability to spread out. So I think that in some ways the Anon respawn timer is targeted at people who gather in one system in a large amount, and that is, I think it's going to not necessarily meet the goal there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I hear that. Okay, so obviously, when you look at something like the Imperium model, right? I mean, look, they own the space that they own because they have the ability to do that, and therefore they can, you know, exploit the resources that are there. If you're smaller and don't have the ability to spread out, or if you're a renter only renting one system, maybe you need to rent another system. Maybe you need to, I don't know, not have so many people piled into a single system. You have to own space in sovereign nullsec, you kind of have to have some ability to take and hold that space. You're not going to take it only with 500 miners in a system.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out Aerith contributing through the chat, saying that he is specifically, and this is Aerith from Goonswarm as the CSM member, says, I'm specifically not providing feedback to CCP because, oh well, it dramatically helps our model, not hostiles. So he's saying he's not involved in this. He's not giving feedback on it, but the changes they've made dramatically help Goonswarm and Imperium, not necessarily the people that aren't them.
I mean, when they make these changes, okay, related to I don't know, trying to somehow, you know, temper the oversupply of mineral acquisition that's going on out there, right? Number one, it should never be targeted at any one group. It should never be targeted at, you know, just because these people over here are doing it in such mass scale, we need to slow it down across the board or something like that. They need to be looking at it on an aggregate scale out there. And if in the end, the big group still brings in more than everybody else, that's just the way it's going to be.
I already had a few people in chats, etc., saying to me, "Oh, I'm just going to get a few extra alts in Rorqual so I can get the same amount still in there, and just more."
Well, it did seem like a cash machine for the last few months, hasn't it? And I think that was on purpose. I think they definitely let Rorquals have its day in the sun because it had been kind of a big investment,
adopting the Riot Games approach to bet game balance. Bring something in overpowered, hope everybody buys it, or in this case injects into it, and then nerf it into the ground and start the new next big thing.
Well, this is Grath's complaint too, that this was a money grab in that they made something very expensive to acquire. Everybody acquired it, and then they nerfed it.
Well, yeah, as I say, that's kind of the Riot Games approach to game balance. But he's right. I mean, I know a lot of people that injected, Rorquals, bought excavators, got their 2 or 3 weeks of mining out, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm getting nerfed again. What? They just nerfed, Rorquals 30 or 40% or whatever it was. Like, what was it, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that. Like, the hits just keep coming, and listen, people aren't going to stop mining the Rorquals until Rorquals mine less than Hulks at this point, right? That's just kind of the mentality of EVE players. And to be honest, the panic module and the safety that provides is pretty significant as well. So I don't know what their end game solution here is to the problem.
But
And
you're
when it-
okay.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, yes, the panic module is there, but that's also because you're sitting in this, much more expensive ship. If you're sitting in a Hulk, guess what? You're free to warp the hell out when baddies come by. You're locked down, probably in indie mode, when you're mining in a Rorqual, so you're a bit more
It's
vulnerable.
true. I don't
I
know.
think-
Like if the point is that they want to bring the Rorqual down to the level where people consider flying Hulks over Rorquals, it's like, holy fuck, this is going to be a painfully
Well-
slow, race to the bottom here.
Izzy, and then we'll move on.
I think that they aren't trying to bring Rorks down to the level of Hulks, but they may be trying to bring the ISK per hour a Rork can achieve down to maybe the level of a Redding carrier. And also the similar density that Redding carriers can have in a system. But one of the problems with that, if that is indeed what they're doing, is that Rorquals require a much larger investment in time and skills to get into. You're sitting in something about 8 billion on a field, opposed to a Redding carrier that's maybe 2 or 3 billion, and you're risking a lot more. You have the very, very susceptible excavator drones on the field, and even with V2s and such like that, it is a large investment, and being able to lose that so quickly, even with panic and all of that sort of thing, it's just, it used to be worth it. You used to have high risk, but you also had very high reward. Now they have considerably reduced the reward, but they've increased the risk because they have nerfed the drone speed, which means that we can't recall our drones as fast, and they're harder to protect. And so they have not only reduced the reward, they've increased the risk.
I
Um,
just
ahead,
wanted
Jen.
to say, you said something there about how they want the ISK of Rorqual to meet the ISK of a carrier. I don't think that's entirely the thing, but wouldn't it be better, for example, if you could get a lot of ISK per hour from your Rorqual, and then that was it? You had to then move it. There was a limited amount of ISK that you could make. I think depletion is a much more healthy mechanic than simply just raw nerfing the ISK per hour that you can make on a Rorqual.
Yep.
Because that goes against some of CCP's philosophy. If people can mine and make 300, 400 ISK in a couple of hours, they then have a bunch of time with which they will then spend that money, and that's a lot healthier than just making people mine for 4 hours to get that 300, 400 mil an hour.
Indeed,
If you
and
give them 2 hours of mining for that, and then they have 2 hours to do whatever the fuck they want, that's great.
I don't claim to do CCP's mind on this. It's just they have been gradually bringing this down, and it seems to me that with discussion from other people, this may be something that they are going in the direction of. I think it is something to consider there.
Yeah, I think just a component that isn't really being talked about is the scalability of Rorquals versus other means of income. I can rat in a super carrier and pull out the hell and make 300-400 mil an hour if I want to, but I would much rather Rorqual mine because I can put 3 Rorquals in a belt, make more money than that hell, require significantly less attention, and it's just a lot easier. And as you increase that rate of depletion, you do reduce the ability to scale, which is a point to kind of note.
Yeah,
Campbell?
and for me, I mine a lot also. Less with one Rorqual, but still, it's relaxing. I don't like to do the whole carrier redding, but at the moment, even carrier redding makes you more ISK than Rorqual mining already. You make between, depending on what you mine, 100, 150 million an hour on a Rorqual, and carrier redding goes at least the same or over that. So but it's indeed the scalability. People can do it with 50, 60 at one point, and yeah, that makes it easier. You cannot red with 50, 60 carriers. That's true.
Well, you can super carrier ratting is an exercise in clicking a lot of fucking buttons, a lot, click, 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 constantly for an hour, right? You can't do anything else if you're super ratting, and carrier rating is not that much different. But with Rorquals, unfortunately, you as you're aware in a leadership position, you spend half of your time sitting on Jabber or Discord or whatever else, coordinating and discussing things and such, and I can do that while I'm Oracle mining, which for me is
Yeah.
a huge advantage because it's so low mental effort, right? You know, put things on asteroid belt, you know, come back 10 minutes later, you know, have somebody speak up a mumble if, you know, rats spawn in the belt. Like, yeah, that's the extent of what is required, right?
And that's a big reason why I also local mine, or at least mine. It's you can watch a TV show, you can do other things, and that makes it relaxing and etc. And I hope they don't nerve it into that they don't make it even worse than it already is after this, because yeah.
I have to admit, I don't understand grinding at all in Eve, because literally if I go and, you know, mow somebody's lawn for $20, I've made more in an hour that I could possibly make in 2 days.
You're setting me up, Matterall.
In Eve. What do you mean?
Never
Oh, don't get triggered. Not all Mexicans mow lawns, okay? All right. So, is there anything else on this that you guys want to discuss? Here's one thing that this may or may not have been brought up, but the idea of the Rorqual being designed for what it's being used for now, that's not the way the thing was introduced into the game. A long time ago, it was supposed to be a dramatic centerpiece of a fleet for mining. And CCP gave that back when they, you know, reconfigured it and gave it back to us, but they gave us that plus the ability of it to mine on its own for people who don't have a whole fleet of friends to mine with them at the same time every day or whatever. So it seems like they kind of painted themselves into one direction, and it was too much, because then somebody said, "Oh, I'll just get 20 of these myself, and one person can mine an entire place over and over and over again," and to totally destabilize the market for minerals. Minerals market was on the floor because there was so much stuff being mined, and I'm sure a lot of it wasn't even sold. I'm sure Aerith has piles and piles of it. They probably sleep on mountains of minerals.
Mountains of Zidrine.
Yeah, mountains of Zidrine. So they looked at it. I'm sure they're looking at all these statistics and saying, okay, we let that faucet run for a while. Let's turn it back. But this looks like a two-pronged attack, just like fatigue. And gosh, I'm not catching the. I can't even say that I'm confused, but it looks like this was the nerf that happened with Phoebe, where they nerfed the projection of super capitals in two different ways. So it looks like they're really ratcheting down on this activity in a significant way, because they're attacking it from two directions.
And that is something that I wish that they would hold off on for it. I think that the introduction of this depletion mechanic in terms of the anomaly timers and things like that, right? Let's see how that plays out before you come down on the Rorqual again. Not because I don't think that maybe again, as somebody who doesn't think that a capital mining vessel should ever exist, right? I would just like to see what happens from this in terms of potentially curbing the excess supply of minerals globally out there before they also hit the Rorqual again.
There's no way to tell what effect is from which nerf.
Right, that's a problem, right?
There's no way to quantify it, because they're both happening at once. So who knows what's from the excavator drone nerf and what's from the respawn timer.
Yeah, that's why this looks like a hard shutoff. Like they're really clamping down on this to have the market bounce back sooner rather than later. And by the way, it was after this announcement came out, of course, with a heavy restriction on mining vessels, you saw the price of mining minerals shoot up because there would be less vessels mining as effectively as they were before. So that trend happened. If you were smart enough to realize before, like a lot of people were, that minerals were at a rock bottom price because production was so high, people were buying over the last month or two or longer minerals, maybe slowly at one at a time, but they were definitely hoarding minerals. At least I was. So when that price shot up, it's either a good time to unload or it's a good time to kind of sit on that stuff and wait till it appreciates even more. Seamus, do you have something?
Yes, just to add on to Azalis's comment, the next time we can get CCP Quant's attention, we may want to ask him if it's possible for crowd control productions to track how much mining is done by, for example, excavator mining drones versus ordinary Tech 2 mining drones versus strip miners versus mining lasers, so on and so forth. That might help to disentangle the effects of two simultaneous nerfs. Maybe.
I think that it is well within CCP's capability to do that, given that their wonderful control of numbers. I'd also like to make a comment that these nerfs are way ahead of, but not unseemly ahead of, the changes to moon mining. And I think it will be interesting to see how moon mining intersects with the anon respawn timers and how all of that affects mining as an activity.
For all we know, these changes may be actually directed towards that, right? Like maybe they did some statistical work and figured out that, wow, a guy with a fleet of Rorquals could go back to 1 or 2 players kind of running a moon division for an alliance or something and said, we got to nerf it even more in 2 different directions. Who knows? Right. Anything else on mining? Well, look for those changes. Somebody said that carriers were probably next because the ratting carriers are making so much money.
Well, you've always got people out there that are calling for, calling for some changes there. That the ISK faucets in Eve are just too wide open. The problem is that in spite of the ISK faucets being what they are, right? Relative to sinks, we don't really have legitimate inflation in Eve, right? It doesn't drive the price of minerals higher. It doesn't drive the price of ships necessarily higher. It does, I think, have an effect on wealth storage devices like Plex, but it doesn't really on the other things that and hopefully what you see with all of these faucets and the money that is being made as people buying things that they then go out and get blowed up.
All right. So this just in from Riva, our news head over at INN. CCP are saying something, not modules, dropped from Satoya. So something dropped? I don't know how to take that. So maybe something did drop, but it wasn't modules. Maybe it was something else.
So they're
we'll
saying
find
a
out what that
blueprint
is.
dropped for
Something,
design
but they're
failure.
not saying a blueprint. And CTL modules they said, and that's incorrect. So there may be other things dropped, but I don't know. It's still not something that feels like doing, because if it's so easy to grab that stuff and not get it to the people who have it, then it's not. No.
If
Not
you
a
run
big-
it and it demotivates everyone from wanting to run it again, it's a bad design.
Billy?
Agreed.
I don't know. I was just going to say that, if there's always those people within these alliances that will gladly, drop fleet and try and take the payday for themselves. So if, a Moloch BPC ends up on the forums in a week or two, we'll know where it came from. Just nobody will know who it did, because apparently whoever it was is pretty sharp about it, I guess.
keeping
good to
quiet.
them.
Apparently, we got a $20 donation from Gredden, who said, "I really
What?
enjoy watching Talking in Stations. Thanks." So now Matterall doesn't have to go mow that lawn.
That donation is bigger than all our donations for a year and a half combined. Wow. Thank you, whoever that was. And thanks for catching that. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, thanks to Seabass for pointing it out in the channel.
Yeah, great. So no lawn mowing for me for today. All right, so let's wrap up with a little bit of news real quick. I'm just going to run through these because you can find them on Eve Updates. And that is the Rogue Drones event that's coming up. It looks like it's an event of the, I guess there's other types where they have like a 2-week time period where certain things can be fought and you can get certain loots and stuff. Okay. UI accessibility, color blindness issues are being addressed with the UI. Very interesting there. And we have new skins for Macarial and new ship designs for the Vexer and Sin and Ishtar. Also some client improvements and stuff. The last thing is AT feeders. Jintan, you you're in a tie for a reason, right? Or do you just dress like that? Is that an American
Oh,
flag behind you?
It is an American flag behind
You're
me. Yeah,
super
you know
alt right. Look at you.
that. No, I'm wearing this because I just did my interview for the AT to be an AT commentator potentially. TM.
Oh, awesome.
luck,
Well, the feeders start next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but
Saturday.
that's covered by Event, I think, not
Yeah.
CCP.
Yeah. But if you're into the Alliance tournament stuff, that all starts next weekend. We'll probably bring it up one more time. If you wanted to hear a great show on it, last week's show, we covered the Alliance tournament. All right. Now, the last thing, if we can show you the new INN logo that we have just designed. Great designer by the name of Prague. Really just blasted through some great stuff. And we've kind of picked up what we like, and we're about to start spreading it all over the place, from our streamers to our site. And so you can look forward to a whole new look. The actual site design won't change for a while. That takes time, obviously, because a lot of programming involved. It's not just a matter of design. But yeah, so there it is. And that's just the beginning. There's a lot of stuff that goes with that. It's a beautiful little concise logo. Amazing designer. Prague is just fantastic. And we have a creative team at INN that's about 25, 26 people big. And they're all great. They all work really hard, and it's a nice team environment, from people who take screenshots of space and battles, people who are designers that create art for the stories, to people who create graphs, and also, of course, people who create video and motion graphics like Corin, Razorian, Prague. You know, we have a whole array of John Dries joined the team as a video guy, and he's doing tutorials with us. So it's really kind of a cool environment. This is, of course, to me, like the crown jewel, that logo. And so we'll look forward to a lot of other stuff that you're going to be seeing
I love that
soon.
logo.
Yeah, it's so good. And, you know, this is, again, just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more design behind this logo that you will be seeing starting to populate. That said, I do want to make a quick pitch for INN. We are looking for an editor who can be on the EU time zone. And we are always looking for new designers. And, you know, just if you have a talent that you think applies to INN, let me know. I'm on Discord for INN, and I'm constantly there looking for talented people who want to be part of a team effort, creating good stuff. All right. Anything else, guys? We can't do shout outs to too many of us, but if anybody feels strongly about something, let me know. And then I just want to go ahead, Cornelius.
Shout out to CCP and congratulations on your 20th anniversary.
Oh, that's a huge one. Could do a whole show on that. Yeah, 20 years of CCP, the company that makes EVE Online. Fantastic. Right. Let me just thank some people who donated here or followed. INN, Rose, you know, I don't know. I just will try to pronounce these. Rosalette, never mind.
Rosaleteschi.
God, thank you. Hey, Seamus, can you read this part?
Certainly. So thanks to the follows for the follows to Rosaleteschi, Forest Unknown, Death in Jest, Chevalier.
With a lot of threes.
Yes, indeed. Amusing username subscribed for 28 months in a row, and Gredden donated $20.
Wow, Gredden, that's a blockbuster. And thanks a lot, Amusing username, for subscribing for 28 months in a row to this channel. The channel thanks you very much.
Good shot, Adderall.
Yeah. I didn't even have to take a shot for it. I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Thank you, Vili, for making some time. Apple Pear, Carneros, Izzy, thank you, and Seamus, and of course, Jintan and Dirk. Thank you guys for showing up in the audience. Appreciate it. That's all we have this week. We will see you next week on Talking in Stations.
che mo fa